Well, what's going on, everybody? Happy Friday the 13th from the Creatures of the Night podcast club over here. This is episode 8. Once again, like always, my co-host David is with me. How's it going, my friend?
Going well. Hi, everybody. We're back for Friday the 13th. Hopefully, we'll get it on time this time.
Man, you dressed up and everything for Jason?
Of course, I dressed up for Friday the 13th. You got to look nice.
I feel underdressed now. So, I mean, obviously it's Friday the 13th. It's all over the place. I'm sure there's a million people now making YouTube videos about it. So we will start it off with a little history lesson from our professor, David Gonzalez, on how Friday the 13th even came about to be a thing nowadays. So kick it off, Professor.
Well, apparently, Friday the 13th is not just...
Quick, Gonzalez.
Not just a schlocky series from the 80s, 90s, and almost today, but it's a bad luck day in history.
Mm-hmm.
On Friday the 13th, hundreds of years ago,
preach, brother,
a bunch of certain group of people were murdered. I think burned at the stake. I think it has to do with Knights Templar. I think Da Vinci Code. Tom Hanks says why Friday the 13th is bad luck in one of those Ron Howard flashbacks. And of course, if Tom Hanks says it, it's true.
It's true.
Just like he met JFK and just like all the things that Tom Hanks did in history. But
Tom Hanks don't lie, man.
But for our, not only our generation, but I think most people in the 20th century, when you think of Friday the 13th, you think of course, bad luck, but you also think of the Friday the 13th movies, Jason. So can't be Friday the 13th without mentioning honorable mention of Friday the 13th, the series. Some people love it, some people hate it, some people are about it. It was a very big deal in the 80s, especially.
Most people don't know about it. Only people our age, where we were like 80s kids, remember that because we were hyped up when that shit happened. Now, historically speaking, thank you for the backstory there and all that. How this truly became the phenomenon that is Jason is nothing more than trying to make a quick buck on the success of Halloween, the series. So they figured we will do our own schlocky killer monster movie slasher, but we'll have more titties, nudity, and it'll be a lot raunchier and gorier, and basically spawning the original Friday the 13th, where it snowballed into what it is now. Many years later, we now have like, what, 11 movies? Is it 11, 12? I don't even know. I think it's 11.
There was Jason X was 10.
10.
Then the next one was Freddy versus Jason, which
11.
Half. And then the remake, the Michael Bay remake that everyone forgot about.
We're not going to count those because that's sort of like the rebooted version. But yeah, so 11, right?
Freddy versus Jason, yeah, I would say 11.
Right. So 11 movies. An 80s TV show that ran for 3 seasons from 87 to 90. Okay. Which is kind of crazy that it even lasted that long. An NES game and a shitload of merchandise, which till today just continues to be a money-making machine. Now, Friday the 13th is one of those franchises that's always stuck in like studio hell with like the rights issues and all that stuff. They always have so many problems. But overall, I guess we're going to talk about Friday the 13th in general. There's plenty of people out there that have tons of breakdowns of tiers of the Jason Friday the 13th movies and what's the best and which sucks. I think we all know. We all have our personal favorites. We could talk about our personal favorites here and there. So I'll kick it off to you. Which one's your favorite, by the way? Because I think you're more of a Jason guy than I am. I'm more of a Michael Myers fan.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I especially as a kid, I was definitely into Jason and Freddy pretty much even, but there were more Jason movies out there than Freddy movies. That was the thing, because Jason started first. Actually, Halloween was the king.
Jason was second, right?
Yeah, And you mentioned they were ripping off the Halloween series. Friday 13th, the original, came out in 1980. So literally they were just ripping off Halloween. Halloween 2 hadn't even come out yet.
Right.
Halloween 2 came out in 1981. So I've seen many interviews and documentaries. Some are really good. They have like 4 or 5 hour documentaries out there that came with the sets. There's even one, I don't know if you've ever seen clips of it on YouTube. There's one, not the best one, but there's one that's actually narrated by Corey Feldman, who was in one,
Yeah.
one, and then he had a scene in the fifth one. He was in there for the time. And the documentary is a bunch of kids around a campfire talking about horror shit, and he's just bringing up Jason. And that's how the setup for the documentary is just them on the campfire talking about the Jason movies. And now that I think about it, if that's Corey Feldman, I think the other people are actually other people from the other movies. It's really cool.
Corey Feldman was like in the documentary as a kid still, or he was old?
No. He was grown up already. Yeah, this came out, I don't know, I want to say like less than 10 years ago in the 2010s, 12, 13.
Because he was in part 4. That's the one that he was in.
Yeah, he was in part 4, and he had a cameo in the scene in the opening of part 5.
Right, which was actually a super cameo shot in his backyard with a hose, making it look like it's raining because he was shooting the Goonies at the time.
That's true. That is true. They couldn't get him back, and they shot him, I think, like you said, in his backyard with rain and lightning, well, which was probably a hose and shit, because he was already big shit. He was doing Gremlins, and he was doing Gremlins, he was doing Goonies, and he was doing Michael Jackson. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was his little heyday beginnings right there. So he was a very busy boy.
So, but go back to what you said. My favorite one.
Yeah.
I think my favorite one, and I'm basing it on obviously nostalgia is most of them. I think my favorite one is part 6, believe it or not. Jason Lives. That's the one with the James Bond intro.
Yeah, that you did a mashup for.
Yes. Well, I did the mashup has a bunch, all the movies there.
But you did.
But I used that from it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's my favorite because it's probably it was the newest one that had come out when I realized these movies were around. And before, I used to have to sneak and watch them on TV late at night. And maybe they were not even on HBO. They could have been on, like, those 33 or 39 where they edit it, but you don't know.
Yeah.
But I was not supposed to watch that.
Well, so I think most people think 6 is their favorite. I think if you look at the consensus, if you look at watch a lot of reviews and stuff, a lot of people love that one.
Yeah.
That's the one where it's kind of like heavily handedly like implied that he's like Frankenstein because he comes back with the lightning.
Yes. The movie before it, 5, a lot of people didn't like because it was not even Jason. They made that one where the guy was pretending to be Jason, like kind of like a Halloween Kills thing, but with no Jason at all.
The whole time. And
so
he died.
Yes.
A barn at the end, right? And he gets impaled.
Yeah. He happens to be an ambulance worker that his son was killed in an accident. So
yeah, then, killer movie.
So then part 6, they say, okay, we're gonna bring back Jason. It's gonna be him. And
that was like very monstrous. I think was that the first time that they had him like full like deformed Jason like to the extreme.
The director of that movie, I think his name is Tom Holland. Not Spider-Man, but his name is Tom Holland. He actually directed another movie that I didn't know he did, that I've seen it and used to scare the shit out of me. It's one of those cult classics that's on Shudder. I think they even showed it on Joe Bob Briggs. It's called One Dark Night, where the sorority makes this girl spend the night in a mausoleum as kind of like her initiation.
Okay. I don't think I've seen one actually. That sounds like something I gotta do for Cult Vault.
I think I talked about it to you and Javi back when we were doing the Halloween stuff. I saw this movie as a kid and I didn't know the name of it, but it stuck with me for years. And then one day I figured it out doing research. And I'm like, that's the movie. Dude, it's nuts. It's 1980, early 80s. Like, it looks like Creepshow, Poltergeist era, 82, 83. The
Okay.
girl wants to go in a sorority, and the girls play a prank on her like a Carrie, and they
Mm-hmm.
spend the night in a mausoleum. And by coincidence, at the same time, there is like this crazy serial. I think I took a lot of this for Sangre, actually. There's like this scary cult leader serial killer that's buried there at the same time. And the, people are doing a seance and they wake him up. So he comes alive and all the bodies come out and become it's like a zombie movie, but they're not moving. They're just kind of like skeletons, like moving.
Uh-huh. It's like a resurrection of the dead type of thing going on.
Dead comes out, yes, and then the girl's trapped in there with her boyfriend or something, and then the woman that's doing the seance comes in to do some sort of exorcism. It was like a copy of like a bunch of movies at the time, Exorcist, Poltergeist, but he did that movie. He's a big horror movie guy, and he's
Mm-hmm.
got all the makings of. He wanted to make it a monster movie. That's why the beginning is a cemetery with the lightning, and the lightning hits the pole. He wanted to be very like the classic monster movies.
Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein.
Jason, he's big. I think the first time that he's actually dead.
Yeah,
He's dead.
zombie. Yeah.
Or he just didn't die, but the first time he was rotten. And
Yeah.
it had the great era where we had the Alice Cooper song. He's back. Yeah.
The Mask.
It had that song in it, and it had a bunch of like
Just see.
it was an MTV type movie.
I just got to see Alice Cooper in concert, and I got an autographed
Oh, nice.
vinyl of Mr. Cooper here.
You bought it autographed, or he autographed it for you?
No, I bought it autographed, but then they ran out, and I have a feeling that they gave him some backstage. He signed more, and they came back. So I like to pretend that that's freshly from that night. But you know what's cool when you see him? Whenever he plays the man behind the mask. I have video footage of it before, and it's like Jason comes down because he has an elaborate stage. It looks like the inside of a mansion and stuff, and Jason is chasing the guy through the stairs and stuff. It's super cool, super fucking cool.
Yeah, and I think by that point, I mean that's part 6. Jason already pretty much run his course, and I think that's like, that's the one where it's like all the pop culture's in on it, just like Freddy. I think Freddy Part 4, the Dream Master.
Oh, Dream, yeah.
That's the one where it became the same thing as Jason, where he was already bigger than life. It was already like you already expected him to say the lines, and he did. It was almost like a James Bond movie where you expect, okay, a cool death. There has to be kills. There has to be boobs. Like there was a checklist already.
Iconic pop culture character. That's
Yeah.
exactly what happens.
And they just happened to do it good. That one was good, and then after that, I think Jason went down.
Well, I think the one after that is the first time that Kane Hodder became Jason.
Part 7.
New Blood, right?
And then that made his. I mean, that one's weird. I mean, have you ever seen that one?
I've seen them all. I haven't seen New Blood.
They're all blur together. They're all blur together, like Harry Potter for me. They all blur together.
It's not a franchise, so it's not like, oh, it's etched in my brain. But I do know enough of it. I've seen them all.
I mean, I like them. They're guilty pleasures. I mean, there's 10 of them at least. I can't say they're not up there with like Lord of the Rings or anything like that, but
that's a whole different genre. But I mean, but that's why we're having this podcast, not only because it's Friday the 13th, but because it's become like so engraved in our upbringing of like being 80s kids, and whether you're a huge fan of it or not, just throughout the years, being like bombarded with Friday the 13th memorabilia, TV show, video games, everything. You know more than you think you know about it. You know what I mean? Like I say, I'm a horror nut, so I've seen them all plenty of times, but it's not my favorite. But I can sit here and talk to you about pretty much all of them. Like right now, I'm just shooting the shit with you, and I'm remembering, oh yeah, New Blood, oh yeah, this and that, oh, King Hodder came in. Because it's so ingrained in my head. It's Friday the 13th. I mean, they had, at the time, it was Friday the 13th that had the spin-off TV show, as well as Nightmare. The Freddy had a TV show.
Yes, I know they had him at the same time. I don't know which one came first. I think Friday 13th came first.
I think so too.
Slightly before.
lasted anywhere near as long because Friday the 13th lasted for 3 seasons. That's a pretty good run for
Yeah,
even though it has nothing to do with
nothing.
the 13th, the film, its franchise, or Jason. It's two kids that inherit a
An antique store.
geek store and they have like cursed items or whatever. So it becomes sort of like Tales from the Crypt, where except it's
It was
more
kind of like it was kind of like X-Files in a way where it was the same characters in each episode, but it's a different mystery on one item that they sold or that they get and they find and they bring it back.
and by it all being tied to the same shop, it almost makes it like an anthology movie
Yeah,
for a TV show, which is kind of an awesome idea.
yeah,
I the concept. The execution may not be the best, but the idea of basing a TV show out of an antique shop selling cursed items. It reminds me of the Simpsons the cursed store episode in one of the Treehouse of Horrors where they get the monkey paw
yes,
is and everything in that store is like damned. And when they leave the store and they turn around, the store's not even there anymore.
yeah.
It's
It's the best thing. It's like yeah, Amazing Stories had episodes like that.
kind of like Needful Things, if you remember that.
Yeah. I remember that movie. Well, the book, but the movie. And
Yeah.
also, what's weird about it, what's cool about it is that the Friday 13th show basically had Freddy hosting it. It was straight drawn. This,
That's the so that one
yeah,
already tied in somewhat. He's not in the episodes, but he's sort of the Elvira character of
yeah,
host.
he speaks in the beginning, and I
Right.
think it was ballsy because I think I'm pretty sure I think someone involved in the movies produced it, so it's technically by the people who created it, but it had really nothing to do with Jason the character or anything. So that was kind of a ballsy idea.
It's funny. It's as if it was the reverse. Even though, let's say the Freddy show came second, they kind of did it more in vain of tying it into the movies by having actually Robert Englund be the host of the episodes as the Crypt Keeper.
Hmm.
Jason did it first, though, and once again, they do it totally incorrectly, but it kind of works better. They capitalize on the name of Friday the 13th, just like they try to capitalize on Halloween and copying them. And then doing it half-assed has nothing to do with the movies itself, but
Oh
it
wait,
because the idea was better. The overall concept for a TV show was far superior by having that plot of a a shop selling damned items, which is a great fucking idea, actually.
and in a way, they kind of also ripped off Halloween 3, which Halloween 3 had the idea of making a sequel, nothing to do with Michael Myers, but just that kind of that feeling. Friday
Tech,
13th. Yeah, remember Halloween just did let's just call it, it's just about Halloween. So this is Friday 13th. It's just bad luck stuff.
because technically, John Carpenter never intended for Halloween to have sequels like that. He intended the Halloween 3 idea to be
The
what the
next
original
thing.
was going to be. Michael Myers was going to be the first movie. The second movie was going to be something totally different. It was going to be his somewhat of an anthology film series. But he was so popular, Michael Myers and Halloween, that the studios come in and they fuck up his idea and they turn it into a franchise standalone. So when he tried to do it again with 3, everybody hated it. Now it has a cult following, and we all love the shit out of that movie. And how many years later now it's like, oh yeah, we see it. Too late now. Which, by the way, side note, John Carpenter has an anthology TV show that's about to hit, I believe, on Peacock. It's called Suburban Screams. Have you heard of this?
I don't think so, but it sounds good.
It's an anthology. I can't even talk right. It's an anthology TV series, and I guess it's going to be based on urban legends. And the poster is awesome. It's a top shot of a neighborhood of all the big houses, and the driveways make like crooked fingers with blood running from the houses down the street. It looks like a hand grabbing the houses. Super fucking cool. So I can't wait to see that. I haven't even seen the trailer, but I'm excited that.
No, that sounds like a good idea. Even though
So
Even though John Carpenter, he's not planning on directing it, right? He's just producing it.
Actually, I think he did some of the episodes. I haven't looked
Oh,
too into it.
good.
I believe not only is he doing it, but he's also, I think, doing the music and everything, just like with the Bloomhouse trilogy. So I hope
And
it.
and also everyone's just copying everybody because after Halloween 3, we all love it now, but no one watched it. Didn't do good back then. We know that. We didn't even really watch it for a long time too because no one played it because it didn't count. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
And then I think 6 years later, the next Halloween movie came out, Halloween: The Return of Michael Myers Part 4, which was 1988. And that shit you could tell is definitely influenced by Friday 13th because those movies, they were making those every year. So they
Yes.
caught up on that. And the only reason they made Michael Myers back was
Make money.
because Jason movies were doing good. And they're like, we did it first, we got it, boom.
They cannibalized each other in an extent, in a way, but we can get backtracked constantly with Halloween, so we got to get back on Friday the 13th. Uh, I never really saw. I don't remember too much of the TV show. I do remember certain episodes, and like I replayed and I was watching some like TV spots for it, and I was like, oh shit, I remember. I remember the creepy intro
The
going
theme
to
song.
with the theme song and stuff,
Yeah.
and stuff like that is been around for such a long time, and that's why I say that no matter what, Friday the 13th pop culturally has been ingrained within our consciousness, whether we know it or not. Because I can always, you bring it up, the TV show, and I immediately thought of the intro more than anything else. Like, I don't remember what the two main characters looked like. I only remember that they were siblings because I looked it up on Wikipedia. But I remember the creepy song. I remember a handful of snippets from some of the episodes that I actually remember seeing it. And this was in a time where there was stuff like Friday the 13th TV show, the what was it called? Monsters TV show or something like that. It was just Monsters, right?
Monsters.
Tales from the Dark Side, the TV show. That was prime time horror, late night, low budget.
Syndicated.
Huh?
It was syndicated. It was not network. It was whatever local station that would play it. For us, it was 33, 39.
And kiddies in those days, it made it that much more creepier because it would literally come on like at 1 o'clock in the morning
Yeah.
with that crappy local broadcast quality style to it. That's why I think the Tales from the Dark Side intro was even more scary when you would watch it on your old fashioned TV in the middle of the night, and
Yes.
that graggly like audio quality and that creepy intro with the still frames of the dark forest. Oh shit! To this day, it gives me goosebumps. But that was the heyday of these horror TV shows being a thing. Um, and if you go back and look at them, yeah, the quality is horrendous. The writing and acting were subpar, but they were something about them are fun, and they were like the intentions were good. Horror was not like a big thing back then where like critics respected it or anything. It was trash TV, and only the hardcore would watch it. You know what I mean? And it's the type of stuff that I loved. So, like I say, it's always been around. Stuff like that. Friday the 13th. It was always been around from TV to merchandise. We've all owned a Jason mask at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's done the last minute cheap Jason Halloween costume. You know what I mean? So why does that happen? Because everybody knows it. So it's like, oh shit, there's a party tonight. I haven't had time for anything. I'll run to the store and get what? A Michael Myers mask, a Jason mask. Oh, I'll go to Amazon now. Get a quick last minute machete, $2 piece of shit machete, and
Definitely.
glow in the dark Michael Myers mask, and I mean Jason mask, and walk around the neighborhood.
Yeah,
And
Jason is definitely the cheapest. The cheapest costume is Jason.
yeah,
You get
yeah.
to cover. If Freddy, you have to get a good mask. If not, you're gonna take it off because it feels like shit and it looks like shit.
Listen,
It wasn't
Jason,
a while. It wasn't a while for a good a Freddy mask.
all you need is a piece of shit T-shirt, a cheap plastic mask, and whatever dollar store machete you can get, and you're good to go. Just throw some fake blood, and you're good to go. Yeah, Freddy is a lot more complicated with a full head and mask, and you need the fedora, and you need a Michael Myers. You can get a mask; it's not going to be as cheap. You could get a cheap one, but then you need some kind of like mechanic jumpsuit. That's not easy to come by. I mean, the point of the matter is that we all know what this shit's all about, and that's why we're talking about this.
And also, like you said about the feel of it, there's tons of stuff now online, but like you said, it's something different about us as kids sitting down. Our TVs were smaller, they were further away from us.
Oh yeah.
And this shit I remember would play not on school nights. It would be like the weekends, Friday night, Saturday night. So
Yeah.
you're awake later, your parents are asleep. That's the only time you're gonna watch it. And you don't know, we don't know anything about budgets and is this good quality. That it's something scary on that it's on at late, so you know it has to be good, and you're expecting it to be super bloody, and it's not, but it's just enough to keep you watching it.
You felt like you shouldn't be watching this.
Yeah.
You got caught watching it, they will force you to change the channel or turn the TV off because they immediately are going to think that you're watching that is just as bad as the movies. You know what I mean? And it's like totally not. Especially in those days, they couldn't get away with anything on regular TV compared to now, unless like I think maybe Tales from the Crypt on HBO was the one who started breaking that barrier.
Oh no, yeah, that was HBO. They could do whatever they wanted. But do
Exactly.
you remember when they syndicated? They used to play Tales from the Crypt on regular TV, and it would be shit because they would cut everything out.
Oh yeah, all the profanity was cut out, the nudity. Every episode was
Yeah.
the nudity.
Sucked.
The
Sucked.
gore, yeah, it was nonsense. It was like, what's the point of this? But people will still watch it because they wouldn't pay for HBO back in the day, so they had no choice to watch the Crypt Keeper. I got the Crypt Keeper. I can't say that. But
And,
anyway,
and you were saying that that intro to Friday 13th, the series, is very similar to Tales from the Crypt, and I think it's technically first. Going
yeah,
through the shop and going, I mean, Tales from the Crypt was more, it was longer, and it started from the outside. Well, I think it tells the Friday 13th, it does go through the door or something.
yeah. I
But
think the door you go into the shop, but that one was like a practical shot in a set. Tales from the Crypt, that was some
models,
works, crazy
models.
effects. That was a lot of budget. That was a
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
a to this day that intro is the best
yeah. That's
intro.
the Robert Zemeckis money. He produced that show.
Yep, especially in the beginning when they put all that money into it and it was a big deal. It eventually it like fizzled,
Yeah.
but those first couple years, that was the most popular shit ever. The
Oh,
Crypt Keeper.
I loved that. I would record it. I mean, it used to be on at night at 10 o'clock at night. I think it was like on Tuesdays or Wednesdays during the week. It would
Yeah,
be, and then it got to a point where they would play two episodes back to back, like two new episodes. And then if it was a two-parter, it would be both. But you know what happened toward the end? They got too elaborate. Do you remember the last couple seasons? They were not really scary anymore. They had the Humphrey Bogart one where they cut him out.
I was about to say, and they were the first ones to do the CGI face through the back mirror.
Yes,
Or
that was Robert Zemeckis. He came back and he did a couple episodes, and then one with Michael Douglas's brother and Kirk Douglas. It was a World War II one. Do you remember that one? It was the yellow, the one that he talks him into killing himself. He thought he was going to get away with it, but he just wanted his son to be brave.
yes,
Lied to him and told him he was not going to get shot or something. That was totally not a Tales from the Crypt that we're used to. That's more like a a David Fincher kind of fucked up movie.
like a movie.
Yeah, yeah. It was kind of like a thriller. It was not really a cheesy horror like the ones they used to have, where it
Mm-hmm.
was a clown that would stab you, or Joey Pants with that extra person,
Oh yes,
or the one he has 9 lives, or the guy that had like an extra appendage, Don Knotts. Not Don Knotts. He died. What's his
the
name? The guy that's always the old man. I think he recently passed. Don Rickles. Don Rickles.
yes, Don Rickles. Yep,
He
yep, yep.
his he actually had a real brother that he would make as a ventriloquist. Remember, he was such a good ventriloquist, but it was really his brother that was his hand or some shit. It was some weird stuff.
Was it Tales from the Crypt episode, or am I mixing it with another horror show? I think it was Tales from the Crypt though, that I had the episode was this old man in a wheelchair. He lives in a big old mansion by himself, and he's being stalked by a black cat.
No, that's Tales from the Dark Side, the movie.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know why I'm mixing that up.
And it's that old guy from Better Off Dead or from One Crazy Summer. Yeah,
Yeah,
son of a bitch. Yeah, yeah.
That at the end the cat comes out of his mouth.
I forgot about that, but I know it's Tales from the Crypt the movie because I remember the old man and the cat
That
from
one,
the
al-
movie.
that one always fucked me up when I was a kid. I was like, oh man. But you see, in those days, all that shit was happening at the same time. So when you think back, it's like, was it Tales from the Dark Side? Was it Tales? But it was an amazing time. I remember I would stay over at my cousin's house and we'd stay up and watch the new episode of Tales from the Crypt. And then later on local late night channel 33 or whatever, they'll play not the monsters, they'll play the monsters
I
TV
remember
show.
the intro. The intro was my favorite part with the family watching TV.
Yes, and then eventually after that ended, they'd show Glow, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. So that's where my mind is.
The
80s
Glow
kid
show.
time.
Do they make a reference to Monsters and Glow?
No. I'm just saying
Oh.
Glow. So they would play afterwards, and we would watch that too. But so it always like I remember those days, man. It was glorious.
And it's not necessarily horror, but a lot of it was obviously the granddaddy of all these things is of course Twilight Zone.
Of course.
And
Well,
then the 80s we also had the Spielberg ones with amazing stories, but they were more like fantasy.
yes. Which, by the way, another amazing docu-series on Shudder. Have you seen the Curse films?
Oh yes. I think they have 2 seasons. For sure I saw season 1, but
I've
I'm
been
familiar with the other stuff. But yes, that's a good show.
I binged every episode for like a week straight. I was like, I couldn't get enough of that shit. Some fucked up talking
And they're
about Twilight Zone. Oh my god, that's the to me that was the worst one.
and they're short and sweet, right?
Yeah, they're about
Only
45
like
minutes.
30 minutes, 30 maybe with commercials, but on Shutter they're probably 20 something minutes.
Yeah, I mean anybody out there that has not seen that, you have to check that out. It's basically an episodic docu-series based on every big old Hollywood film that is deemed to be a cursed set or crazy shit that has happened, and each one is a specific movie. One being the Twilight Zone
The
movie,
movie.
the movie where they have that racist guy where he like is taken through different times and like showing it's kind of like the Scrooge plot. They show him different time periods of racism or whatever, and the they're in Vietnam and they had this crazy scene where he had to run with 2 kids under his arms through the water with a freaking Huey helicopter over them and explosions going off. And the director was
John Landis.
John Landis. He was hot shit at the time. He had just done American Werewolf in London, so he was huge. And John Landis, man, let me tell you something. They trash him in this shit. He was egotistical. He did shit illegally. They weren't supposed to have kids
Like
shooting.
father, like son.
Bro. Uh, they weren't supposed to have kids shooting past a certain time of day. So he got non-actor kids from like a local village and they shot well beyond midnight. He didn't tell the camera guy that the helicopter pilot that he told the pyrotechnics guy to add extra explosions and don't tell anybody. He wants their natural reactions. One thing led to another. That
Yeah.
explosion went off. The helicopter was too low to the ground. It made it crash, and the propeller of the chopper chopped up the main actor with the 2 kids under his arms into pieces. And there's footage of this shit, and I could not believe the horror I was watching. Like, it disgusted me. I was like, I can't believe this shit. And then it goes into the trial. There was a huge trial where Landis had to show up, and he might have gone to prison, but he got away with it. And then he went to the funeral of the kids. I mean, it's some dark ass shit. Like, that was like the first episode I saw, and I was like, this is great. And
The
I
best
just
one.
I just binged them all. It is the best one though. So if you want to see what it's about, I know it sounds like some dark, morbid shit, but it's like things that would never happen now. Like there's one on The Crow where Brandon Lee got shot and all that.
That's the closest thing. That's the closest thing that happened.
right,
But
and it's
that one was a genuine. I mean, the John Landis thing was
that
a
was
lot more irresponsibility, I think.
a lot more. The Crow thing, it was a lot of cutting the budget and a lot of negligent shit. But it's almost like
A low budget. It was a low budget mistake. And then not to mention the new one that happened with Alec Baldwin.
I was just gonna. It just happened again with Alec Baldwin, so it can happen. A bullet in a chamber, it can happen. You lose track of props. All of a sudden, somebody gets a gun that maybe came from a pawn shop. It's real. God only knows it can. But that one, was purely on the director.
That one changed the way movies are made since 1982, 83. Laws and everything like that. That's why you have to have like little people, double kids, and all that stuff, among other things.
A million on set, keeping an eye on you now. Back then, it was like the Wild West, man. All they had to do was take the production to another country, and they just took your word on it, looking at dailies that you were doing shit correctly, but you could do whatever the fuck you wanted. It was insane.
And that kind of mentality that he had, that's great when you're starting up. Like when we were in film school and young directors, you kind of have to like hustle. And you're like, oh shit, do we have permission? No, but let's do it anyway.
Guerrilla filmmaking.
Yeah. But when you're making a movie, a Spielberg produced movie, when you're already John Landis, and he didn't have, you know what I mean? That there was mistakes being made. Who knows for sure? We weren't at the trial. I know we've seen clips and everything, but I remember learning about this in detail in the mid-90s. HBO had a show called Caught on Camera. I don't know, it was some documentary. You know, HBO had those great ones.
Yeah.
And it was things caught on camera.
And it showed the crash.
A big part of it was about the death, and they showed the footage that you can see online. I don't even know if Curse filmed. I don't remember if they show it completely, but you can go online and you can see it frame by frame.
Curse film shows the main shot where you see the guy crossing and you see
far away,
and you can. It's a pullback shot, but it's a high angle, so you can see when he comes down and you see like everything go everywhere. I know for a fact that there's multiple camera angles.
Yeah, I know. They shot it with like 12 cameras. If you go online and you look it up.
One angle. They only show that they showed other angles of the aftermath, but of the actual, maybe because it was too much, because even the angle that they shot for a brief second there, you literally see something just pop. Like,
No, there's multiple angles. I've seen all of that stuff. Even the closest one, it happened so fast that it's nothing like you could see on your websites now. It's not like that, but you can actually see just the splash, because the documentary that I saw in the clips, they go frame by frame because it's so fast.
Yeah, it shows it, and if I'm not mistaken, they slow it down, but they don't linger on it too much.
Yeah.
It was enough that I saw it, and I was like freaked out. I was like,
it's really fast. And do you remember that scene in the original Matrix when Neo comes up in the helicopter and starts shooting into the, and then there's a shot of the water going
right, and it hits his
that's happening with the propellers. You know, you see the water behind them going.
Yeah,
when it reaches them.
It just turns
glory. You can see the close-up. You can see dark shadows separating. So you can see basically it looks like the head and the body, the heads and the body going different directions in one frame. And then technically, Vic Morrow and the girl were cut by the blade, and the kid technically was actually hit by the helicopter. The helicopter landed right on top of them.
Oof.
So they got the blades, and the kid actually falls from his arms before it happened. He was having trouble with the kids, and it slowed him down. He would have been further. He went back to grab the kid, and that's when it happens. And I think the kid just got actually crushed, technically. But
that series overall is amazing. It has Poltergeist episode. It has a Crow episode. It has the Omen episode. You name it.
And a lot of them are like the Curse, or you know, like the Twilight Zone. That's actually something you can prove and see.
Yes.
The Poltergeist could be bad luck. You know, the Omen, the Rosemary's Baby is kind of the same thing. Everyone involved in the movie, something bad happened to them.
The Rosemary's Baby episode is my second favorite one because it's so heavily involved with the Manson murders.
Yeah.
And stuff
what happened to him.
That it's like all intertwined, and it makes it for a more in-depth view of that crazy time and the world that these people were living in. But highly recommended, Curse. I know we went on a tangent on the side here, but for anybody listening who's interested in anything like this, fantastic series. There's 2 seasons. I think maybe there's like 13, 14 episodes.
It's maybe a few episodes each. Did you see the Wizard of Oz one?
Yes, I did.
I've
That
heard
was
about that before, but
shit.
that's a filler one, you know. I do want to see that Chevy Chase Carrie Fisher movie though.
Yeah, the one based on the dwarves after party shit. That crazy. I didn't even know that movie existed. I
Me
was like,
either
what?
was a big bomb, but I've heard about before on Howard Stern a long time ago. They were talking about it.
Rainbow Bridge or something like that is what it's called. That's the name of.
Under the rainbow,
Oh, Under the Rainbow,
something
whatever.
like that.
Yeah,
And it's
something.
supposedly about the little people that were hired, that they were all, you know, it was
Party.
exploit. It was kind of like Freaks, or that One of Us, that famous old movie.
Now everybody's like disgusted and so embarrassed that they portray little people like that. I'm like,
You
it's
can't even you can't, well, not to get any flags or anything, but you can't nowadays. It sucks because you do Lord of the Rings now, you're gonna get in trouble because you didn't hire actual little people, even though it's a character called a hobbit. You know what I mean?
all
There's
right.
no differential between fantasy and reality anymore. You know what I mean? It's like it's
Everything.
not watching a documentary. You don't have to get an actual person who is actually that. You don't get a fireman to be the lead in Backdraft. You get Kurt Russell and you show him how to be a fireman. You know, that's what acting is. But
It's called acting, yeah. But we live in a PC world, and it's a. If you look at half the shit that these people did back in the day, you watch it now, and it's almost like watching a historical film, and you accept it. But like young people watch it, and they're probably horrified. Like, what is this?
you
How?
mean like Short Circuit and
Yes.
stuff like that?
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't even realize. I didn't even know what was going on. Did you?
Of course not. We're kids. We don't think about
Soul Man, you know, because it's a purpose.
it. Exactly. He puts on blackface.
But you know what, Nachi? That means you can't even make you. I mean, you can't make it now without Robin Williams, but you can't even make Miss Doubtfire now because someone's gonna get offended.
It's gonna get canceled. Well, we're going on a way off tangent here, but maybe we'll start like winding it down now. I think we're kind of getting to the basics of the Friday the 13th and the whole.
Oh yeah, Friday 13th.
Yeah, remember that's what we're talking about.
I heard he went to. I heard he goes to New York in one movie.
Yeah, I heard it's Manhattan. Actually, a lot of people hate that movie. I like it. I think it's so stupid and
Yeah,
cheesy. Short. It's super short.
it's super short. It's like an hour and 20 minutes. It's a mess. We could have
How
made that movie.
how does he hitchhike on a cruise ship for a
This one
kid?
doesn't make sense.
Nothing makes sense about that fucking movie, but
Crystal Lake now heads to the ocean. How did they get the boat there? But you know who's in that movie? I don't know if you saw it recently, but she's one of the girls that gets killed. I forgot her name. She was hot shit in the 2000s. She was the girl from the Scorpion King, Kelly Hugh. Remember that really pretty Asian girl that was in the Scorpion King, and she was in X2. She was Death, the one that fights Wolverine in X2 with the claws.
kinda. I don't remember what she looks like.
She
But
was big shit. She's in that movie when she was young. She's the only. That's the only famous person in there.
I gotta go back.
But you know what happened? They cut the budget, like a Superman 4 thing, Masters of the Universe thing. They only had like one day to shoot in New York. And the only thing they shot in New York was that famous Times Square shot that's awesome.
Yeah, everything else is generic alleys,
They
rooftops.
shot in Canada. They shot in Canada the rest of the movie.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
original script, he was supposed to. Do you remember that scene where he punches that guy's head off? In the script, before they cut the budget, he was supposed to fight in Madison Square Garden. In the actual arena, he was going to come into the arena during a fight and punch one of the boxers' head off in front of everybody. They couldn't film that.
Of course they wouldn't have been. I mean, they could have faked it, but
It would have been a shitty matte painting, a little crappy matte painting. It would have.
what we're doing nowadays is that they'll wait for a real event,
Yes, like Rocky did.
show up, do a quick scene, and get the hell out. But in those days, with that budget, that would have never happened anyways. You know what?
Oh, and with those cameras, they need real not video cameras and shit. They need like the real heavy cameras and everything.
Maybe you have to do a handheld to sneak in the shot in a busy arena and then get out. After
And
that,
then
what the hell, right?
after that, that's when Paramount, the last two Jason movies, 7 and 8, didn't do well. And Paramount was
Over it.
supposedly, the rumor is that it made so much money, but they were embarrassed about it. They
Uh-huh.
did it. So then they had a regime change, and the guy said, get rid of it. They sold it to New Line. And New Line was dying to buy it so they could do Freddy versus Jason. They sold it. They made Jason's Dead the final nightmare with the intention of making Freddy versus Jason next. But then all the legal battling over splitting the money happened because
Mm-hmm.
I guess they didn't fully sell it. I think it was some weird contract where they could do Jason, but they couldn't do Friday 13th. I don't know. It was some legal shit. That's why they always kept calling it Jason X Jason. It was never Friday 13th again.
Those Friday, I'm telling you, Friday the 13th stuff is always stuck in like
Right stuff.
right hell.
That's
Like
why it's Jason X, Jason versus Freddy. Well, Friday 13th, the Michael Bay remake, I guess they resolved that, but that was like 20 years later.
way after.
And
But
then
I
the
think,
shitty Jason X, remember? That was garbage though.
yeah, Jason in Space.
That was a sci-fi channel movie that got lucky and went out into the theater.
I
We
mean, I
saw it, but we fell asleep, I think.
saw it in theaters. That's right. We did see it in theaters,
Yeah, we saw it at our old theater. We went to Chili's, we knocked back some drinks, and we went to go see it.
as one does to see
For free, by the way. We all worked there. I think at that point I worked there. We got everybody in. We saw it for free, so we didn't care.
But I mean, those were the fun days. We used to sneak horror movies. You and me saw freaking Exorcist when they had the director's cut. Remember?
The re-release in 2000 with the extra scenes. Yes.
We were projectionists, and at the time, we built it on a Thursday night when the movies would come in. After the theater closed, we ran it for ourselves with the lights off.
And I've invited our friends. We'd sneak them in. Yeah.
And that was the scariest shit I ever had to see and go home to myself afterwards. I was like, to this day, to me, The Exorcist is the scariest movie ever.
Do you remember, Nachi? We finished that movie by coincidence. We all came out to talk shit.
We're off, and it was fog.
It was fog everywhere, just like the famous shot. And then the timers went off and the lights went off, and we all said, we got to go home. It was like 2 a.m. And we said, like, and we were like, 20 years old at that point. We were grown-ups, kind of. Took a shit.
That was a long drive home, man. I was like, holy shit. Something is going to follow me. It follows for real, bro. Fuck that.
That's
That was
another one.
the film experience I ever had in my life. Nothing has ever come close to that.
And then remember, not only was a movie from the 70s remastered, kind of like Star Wars with new shit, it had the digital sound that we never had before. That
Yeah, and that was the first time, theatrically at least, I think, period, that the famous crab walk scene was added.
yes, that was an added scene. That's the scariest scene. I tell my son that's the scariest part.
Little devil faces in the kitchen, and that was the first time for us. So we were
That
like,
was added, right? Or that wasn't the original one, they just enhanced it. That was added, right?
I think it was part of the original director's cut, and
But
that
they made it glow. They did something to it.
no, no, it was like a remastered version that we saw with new sound.
You can get it.
For a beat,
it's everywhere now because that new Exorcist movie came out.
yep. I heard it's not that good. But
And then right away came out Jason versus Freddy, which is it's I mean it is what it is, but it's okay. It's like a stupid. It's what else? I mean, 2003. What else could we get?
it's so a product of early 2000s. It was like, yeah, Jason versus. It was almost like a video game.
No, it was. You had Jason. You had raves. You had glow sticks. You had rave parties with ecstasy. You had that rock music. That rock music from the early 2000s.
That was that was new metal, baby. That's a time of like
Godsmack.
God, yeah, shit that I still love, but that's that was a perfect capture of like what the 2000s timeline was like. The way they dressed in the movie and shit, raids, fucking new metal. I gotta go back. Perfect. I have not seen it in a long time. I gotta go back and rewatch it.
Yeah, watch it again. I mean, there's things that don't hold up. Some of the effects look bad, that CG, and there's there's a lot of things that they do now. They're like, ooh, they wouldn't do that now because it's like a lot of like gay jokes and shit like that.
Okay.
But that movie is good at what it is. It's like taking, two subpar things that we all have to do sometimes. Like it's like taking a McDonald's meal and a Burger King meal and saying, how do you make a movie of this shit and this shit? Well, and they came up with a pretty clever idea how to mix McDonald's and Burger King together, which making Freddy control his dreams. And it was more clever than it should have been.
Yeah, no, no, it was a
And it
total.
made a lot of money. It made a lot of money. Do you remember that came out? It was packed.
See, bro, I'm telling you, everybody was in high school and college at the time. That was like amazing. Let's go watch this shit. Everybody will take their girls. The theaters will get packed. Remember,
And
that
the
was
story goes that because of that, the success of that movie, 20th Century Fox scrapped their original planned Alien 4 movie. Remember? And the studio head is like Alien versus Predator. They fast tracked that. That movie was greenlit after within a year. The other
yeah,
movie was done because they and then remember they tried to
yeah.
copy that, but they
After,
got it wrong. They made it PG-13,
yeah, so stupid.
and they didn't keep the styles of the other movies. They tried to hip it up, and it just didn't work.
And there was rumors that they were gonna possibly do like Ash versus
Yes.
Jason or whatever the hell, and it was gonna be this whole franchise of shit that never happened. You know,
Yeah, or Michael Myers versus whatever property they own, Hellraiser, and then Chucky versus Leprechaun and all this shit.
it was gonna be celebrity deathmatch for real. It was just gonna be this versus that, that versus that, anything that comes up. It was a very magical time, early 2000s. That's when we got like what, Jeepers Creepers. I know what you did last summer. It was around that time period,
Well,
wasn't it?
I know you did last summer was came out in the late 90s. That was after Scream. We were getting all those slasher ones.
Yes, you're right.
Scream was the next thing that everyone copied. And then in the early 2000s, you started getting those indie horror movies like Jeepers Creepers and remember that Bill Paxton movie Frailty?
I love
That's
that.
funny. You had
I,
those underground horror movies like Fear.com, like all these wild ones. And then you know what ruined horror? Fucking Saw came in. The first one was good, but then everything was Saw, Hostel, Saw, Hostel, Saw, Hostel for like
yep.
8 years. And then Paranormal Activity, Paranormal Activity, Paranormal Activity, Saw. It was all that same shit.
Shit, I hate those fucking movies. I'm sorry. Those out you out there who love it, good for you. That's
What?
there's
Which movie? Saw or Paranormal Activity?
normal activities. Oh my god, I such bullshit, nonsense, cheap garbage, and it was like nonstop every year. Paranormal activity. At least the Saw ones, the first ones were great, and even the ones that sucked, it had creative kills, amazing traps. The
It was
ideas
a
were cool.
movie. It was a real movie. It wasn't a cheap movie. You know, like they took advantage of that video camera shit. How many of those movies came out?
Talk
That
about
was
that.
shit.
All that really was Blair Witch.
Of course, which I watched it recently and I really admire the movie now. It was really ahead of its time.
Yeah, the original one.
Yes, I understand why then people get mad. You were your friends, and
What? Because
it's really a way. It's really just waiting. It's really a mood, and it's all like it looks real. They made a good job of making it look real because half of it was made up.
mhm,
Great idea, and with the fake documentary and the marketing with the website.
fresh idea that nobody had truly done before. So and the marketing was brilliant. They lied to everybody and sold it as actual found footage that they just released everywhere, which makes no sense. That would never fucking happen. But people fell for it. And what did it cost? $10? It made money hand over fist. It turned into a franchise and
It made a studio. It made that company a studio for a while. Remember, Artisan Entertainment was big for a while,
yeah, yeah. I
but the
remember
two directors got screwed. Apparently, their deal, whatever they signed, they owned nothing.
nothing out of it.
They
Yeah,
made
and
nothing out of it.
I think eventually they made some projects here and there, and then I don't know. I don't know if
They
they're even.
even they were not even approached for the sequel. Remember, they made the shitty sequel a year later, which is a mess.
Remember, we had to build that super complicated standee for it. I don't know if you remember that. I
It was
remember.
it was the face with the spider web.
Yeah, it was a mission to build that thing together.
That
Anyways,
movie's a mess. That movie's a mess.
bullshit. Typical Hollywood. They get something good and then they just want to get a cheap buck and they fuck it up. They don't care. They're stupid. But let's wrap it up.
So that's what Friday 13th is all about.
Old memories, historical feedback from our professor Gonzalez,
That's
our
right.
little history into TV horror shows, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. That's what we do here.
Yeah, it's like a TED Talk.
It's a TED Talk, baby. That's what we got
TED
here.
Talk. Two TEDs. It's just two Teds. We call
The
it the Teds.
Teds. But hey, we're keeping our word. That's two podcasts in 1 month.
Wow,
We're on fire.
we're on fire.
And we get a third one in. You know, let's not play with fire too much, but you never know.
Before
You never
Halloween, we should do before Halloween. We'll have something Halloweeny.
Great. Well, I mean, we got a bunch of little videos that are coming out regardless, but one more podcast, David. And I don't want you in a fucking pink shirt and tie either for Halloween special.
All right, I'll put on my Terrifier shirt.
Whatever you want, but we're gonna Halloween ourselves out. Right?
There's been a few. There was one where I had, I think, a Friday 13th or a Scream shirt. There was one where I got into it. I had time.
But you need to get to it again. No? Actually, speaking of Terrifier, they're gonna re-release it in theaters, part 2, attached with the trailer for part 3.
I was just gonna bring you up. I heard, but have they shot anything, or is it just like a teaser?
No, I think he's been shooting it. I think they've been shooting Terrifier 3. Let me see if I see anything real quick. It just says upcoming with the same cast, and I think it says that it's been in production. Terrifier 2 will be hitting theaters again on November 1st. What a weird time to release Terrifier 2 in theaters again. But okay. And it will release with the Terrifier 3 trailer attached, so they have to be filming stuff. But I guess
probably gonna be, you know how he is, this guy. It's probably gonna be like a scene, the opening of the movie, and then like
has like a $3 million budget or something.
I know, imagine what he can do with 3 million.
This big opus, like he's always had.
I can't even imagine, dude, because part 2 was a giant leap from part 1, at least like crazy idea wise.
Right. Like, I feel like that, I want to call it a franchise because it is, has either people who can't stand it or people who fucking adore it. And they're like, huge. I love it.
I like it too.
We did a whole special
on it that I told you. My first thing is like, I almost feel bad for liking it. I feel wrong. You know what? People that don't like it, I think they're just not going to see it.
Agreed. I feel like when people...
They know about it. They know, like my wife, she knows about it. She refuses to watch it. She doesn't like shit like that. She's not going to want to watch it.
You know what? Even though
my son wants to watch it, but no way he can watch it. But he knows, he's seen pictures of him and he's interested.
Because he sees Art the Clown and he's like, I want to see that. But not yet. Not yet.
No. It's too much.
Dina saw, I think, for the most part, on and off part 1. She does not give a shit for that. And I get it. There's people who like, I'm not a big body mutilation horror guy. I don't care for those. I, for some reason, gravitated to the Terrifier movies. And
it's done well. It is gratuitous, but it's done and it's low budget. We like that, where it's like, how much can they do with so little?
I appreciate the guy doing. Leone is not really a director. He's an effects guy. And he put on 19.
Leone, yeah.
And he fucking did this movie. It became a cult hit. And it started this. It's like the dream scenario that never really happens much, where he has an iconic character. It blew up. Now he has a franchise. I hope he did the right thing with Art the Clown, where he's actually making money off royalties of all the shit that they're making nowadays.
Yeah.
But it's enough for him to be set for life. Like, Art the Clown is going to be around for a while. I don't know how big he can get, because no matter what, unless he wants to lose the essence of the Terrifier movies with the gore and stuff, which I don't think he would, he's always going to have that sort of lower budget, more underground. But the sheer fact that they're releasing it in theaters
unrated.
Yeah.
About this one, but they're able to do it unrated, that's why he has to keep it under 3 million.
Yeah. One of the coolest things I have is the barf bag that they gave out in theaters.
Nice.
You know, they actually gave out the fucking barf bags, which I never seen that. That's so something schlocky from the 1950s, you know?
That's the whole thing, that making it like an experience. Like,
That is magical. Like that doesn't exist anymore. For so stuff like that to happen, I always want to show my support and pay for it, and like and like you know buy merchandise and all this shit and contribute so that he can continue and other people can try to have that type of thing and be successful. He kind of showed that it can be successful. You know, it's like super hardcore, like gore and nudity.
no, yes, he took the grindhouse feel of an old movie and then made it new, so you don't know what you're watching yet. Kind of
Exactly.
like what Tarantino and Rodriguez wanted to do with Grindhouse a little bit.
It's two
He did
people.
it. He did it as a whole movie, and it seems to be doing better than Grindhouse did.
Which will do a loop around with Thanksgiving now coming out for Thanksgiving.
So weird, man.
It's so weird. But you see, the difference is Thanksgiving was nothing more than a grindhouse trailer that now, so many years later, he turned into an actual film. But now the trailer for it came out, and it's so studio clean compared to what the original trailer was. Why
At
not?
least the people that made the trailer made it look that way. You know, they
Sure, that's exactly what the movie looks. I mean, they even the Pilgrim looks totally different.
no, yeah, he has a face. Before you couldn't see him.
That's like a stylized mask. I'm like,
Before it was dark, it was just dark. Remember, you just had the thing, and you
yeah, yeah.
couldn't see his face. Yeah.
Whole grindhouse vibe is what this movie does. And now that guy is doing it big time with a huge budget because he's a huge director now, doing the more like stylized, clean studio horror film that you expect, like a Scream. It looks like a Scream film, you know, but
Yeah, Scream ripoff, because those Scream movies, the last two did a lot. The last one made money. You're doing well, surprisingly, and then
I know I mean, but it's Eli Roth at the end, so I'm hoping that even
bring
if
an edge to it.
it's still going to be edgy and he's going to push it as much as he can.
Did you
But
ever see Green Inferno?
yeah. That's why I'm like, I have hope that it's still gonna be some, because I don't think that's like a gigantic budget film. So I think
No. I mean, bigger budgets than he had before, but nothing big. And that was his. I think they're still married. That's his wife, the main girl.
Oh, is it? I have no idea.
His Colombian girl, the Spanish girl, the main character from that movie. That's his wife. She's also in another movie he did. Oh, she's in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She plays DiCaprio's at the very end in the Manson house. She's DiCaprio's like foreign wife that's bitching on the plane.
Oh, yes.
And she's in another movie he did with her. I think he met her. He's in another movie. She's in another movie that he directed. I don't know if it was. I don't think it was Hostel, but yeah, they're together.
Cool.
They're married, I think. Anyway,
I mean,
and he has a great show on AMC called The Masters of Horror. That's good.
yes, I believe that's also
Multiple seasons.
on Shudder.
Yeah. And then they had another one with Sci-Fi, but it didn't really go anywhere. You see that Masters of Sci-Fi? They had George Lucas and James Cameron all talking on a table.
They have like sit down at a table.
That's
yeah,
cool.
That is cool. That's cool. It's kind of like the old inside Hollywood studios or whatever that sit down with the guy that passed away with the beard, James Lipton.
Yeah, of course.
But
right, so we'll call it a night.
Let's wrap it up for today.
All right, let's wrap it up for Friday 13th. Stay safe, and we'll be back in time for trick or treat.
We'll do one more for Halloween, guys. So thank you for listening to our little podcast here. And as always, creep it real, baby. See you next time.
See you next time.
Later.